All right, people, I have a special guest today in Alpaca. The PACA is here, and we have a very important task ahead of us, which is to educate all of you, the audience, on podcasts. Podcasts. These are important podcasts. You need to know what are the good ones and what are the bad ones. Isn't that right, PACA?
It's true. Podcasts serve a very important role in the modern day discourse. In fact, I would argue that it's the most profound and important place for you to get any information on the internet. So I think what Tommy and I are going to do is I'm going to sit here and sip on this Rain Total Body Fuel Rainbow Sherbet energy drink here to get the maximum amount of salt and chemicals into my cerebellum in order to provide you guys with the most biting and honest commentary and feedback. We're going to be ranking these podcasts in terms of importance. So S tier obviously being the most important, D tier being of little to no value in the current discourse. There is no F because none of these people are failures. They're all important and fearfully and wonderfully made. So we're going to try to be respectful, but also provide some needed pushback, and try to give you guys really a guide stone where you can rely on this information. You can come back to it at any time and think next time you're looking for a podcast or something to listen to in the car on your commute to work or while you're watching your children, the baby's on the floor playing with blocks and you're just bored to death doom scrolling. This is going to be your guide. So hold our hands as we take you on this journey together.
Thank you, PACA, and thank you for giving us your time here to lend your knowledge. I know this is going to be
I'm a very busy man, Tom. I'm a very busy man.
I know, but thanks for carving out a little bit of time here. This is going to be super valuable to my audience. So let's start here at the top. Candace Owens. Where's Candace going to go? I mean, what do you think about Candace here, Paca?
Candace Owens is an unusual case, because she started off as a little bit of a lefty, right? We all know the backstory. Candace Owens starts a doxing website to go after right-wing guys, to go after the nasty racist types people. But it was back in the day when everybody was racist for participating in a Call of Duty lobby. But I think she's just, had a genuine series of growths and personal shifts. Her belief system has radically changed to almost an entire 180. And I would consider her to be an extremely reliable source of information. Her work on the recent Charlie Kirk case, where she's divining information from dreams and visions, it speaks to me of a deep intuition, Tom.
Her intuition is what she leans on, that's for sure. So what do you think, in A tier? Where should we put Candace podcast?
I would recommend in like 90% of cases that women listen to Candace Owens. So yeah, A tier is definitely where she needs to go. She needs more listeners. I think a highly underrated podcast. I'm bullish on Candace Owens.
Bullish on Candace, that's good. What about the Tucker podcast here? What are we doing with Tucker?
He had his, he's making nicotine pouches, which everyone knows is bad. We need to keep flavored nicotine out of the market because it's a draw for kids. He had Ian Carroll on his show, which is it's just not good, Tom. Where do you think he brings?
Tucker, he's been up and down for me. I do appreciate Tucker. He did go down over at Fox News. Rupert Murdoch took him down. So got to appreciate what he's been doing as an independent podcast now. I didn't like that he loves the Muslims, Paca. He seems to love the Muslims a little too much these days. At AmFest, he was talking about how much he loved the Muslims. Did you see that?
Yeah, we definitely... he's become a little bit anti-Semitic, I think, and I think he's just looking for a friend. And I wish Candace would reach out to him. Candace Owens, if you're listening to this, please reach out to your friend Tucker Carlson. I think he needs someone to talk to. So for that reason, I would put Tucker at like C tier. No one should ever listen to him. I don't think he's valuable in the movement. I think his time is past. Fox News is probably the best he's going to be. When he first got, started doing hits on Hannity and Combs back in the day, that was A tier Tucker. But now, I don't see him going back to the White House anytime soon.
All right. Have you ever heard of this guy, Ramsey? Ramsey, he's a finance podcast. Have you ever heard of him, Alpaca?
Isn't Ramsey the pharaoh during the Exodus?
Yes, I think he's named after that, but no, this is a modern boomer who actually gives finance advice to people who are in debt. You never heard of him, Dave Ramsey?
No, I've never heard of him.
He's good. He's good. I like him. He helps the chuds get out of debt, so I'm going to keep him here in A tier to keep our chuds out of debt. What about PBD?
I'll trust your
Bet-David.
judgment on Dave Ramsey. The only finance guy I trust is Mad Money with that one guy, the bald guy that shouts a lot. Patrick
yes.
Patrick
Bet
David.
Yes. How do you feel about this
Now,
Jewish man?
that's a finance podcast I can get with. He's the guy that started the campsite in like Romania or something, right?
No, I think you're thinking of Andrew Tate.
Is he the guy that talks really fast and where's the yarmulke?
No, that's Ben. We got Ben here as well. How do you feel about Ben? That's another Ben.
Ben is S tier. I love the cut of his jib. I love the fact that he
S-tier.
talks really fast. Yeah, S tier. S tier. Everything Ben has said in the last 10 years has completely panned out exactly as Ben said it would. He's obviously on our side as Christians. We need to support Israel, so Ben is S tier for sure. Patrick Bet-David, I don't know who he is. He seems like a nice guy. I think he had Nick Fuentes on, though, so he might be C tier with Tucker.
Okay. Yeah, Ben, have you ever seen Ben Shapiro play the violin?
I did see that video of him playing a tune from Fiddler on the Roof, and you know what? It did bring a tear to my eye. He's an absolute gem.
Yes.
And I hear he's very tall.
He's, I think, the best violin player on our list here, so he could get S tier just for that.
Yeah, and plus he has a very comely sister, so if you come from stock like that, you have to be a good person.
All right, what about Tim? Tim Cast, the beanie wearing ex skater.
I primarily know Tim from he has a live stream where a bunch of chickens live somewhat derelict in a house, right? And that he live streams the chickens interacting with each other, and you could donate to the chicken site, and different things will happen, like a disco ball falls and there's like a chicken rave.
Oh, wow. No, I'm not aware of that. That sounds really cool, though.
That's what I would say A tier just for the chickens.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about the guy.
Okay. What about the Joe Rogan experience? Did you ever watch that? Did you ever have a Joe Rogan phase in your 20s?
I really only know Joe Rogan from the time that he had Christopher Hitchens on, and who's that African American gentleman that's the really famous astronomer?
Oh, you mean the guy who took over the Cosmos TV show?
Yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson or whatever his name is. Yeah, Joe Rogan is B tier. He's not great on his own. He's had these really unfunny guys like Shane Gillis and James McCann Forbes and Adam Smith. Like, he has a lot of comedians on, and I'm not a big comedy guy. I do appreciate it when Joe Rogan has scientists. So people that are important.
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Like Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of the best astronomers of our age.
Okay, yep, gotcha. Okay, we got Joe Rogan in the B tier. Now we got a little bit more of a niche podcast coming up from the reformed sphere. First one is Hard Men Podcast. This comes out of Ogden. It's the Eric Kahn podcast. It's been around for a few years, and it's sort of started out as this masculinity focus. If you recall, masculinity was like a big push about 3 or 4 years ago in the Reformed site. But it's still going, and I think Eric Kahn is a great guy, and he's done some good work on this podcast. So, have you ever listened to this one, Packa?
This came up as a recommended podcast for me, and I kind of thought it was a touch pornographic, so I didn't listen to it.
Oh,
but,
no.
Now that you're describing it, I do think it's really cool that Harvey Kahn, he came up as a seminary professor way back in like the '60s, and
No, you're
Harvey
thinking of
Kahn, he
the
has
wrong
to
Kahn.
be.
It's Eric Kahn from Ogden, the guy with the big beard.
Eric.
Yes, Eric Kahn from Ogden.
Oh, is he the guy from the Haunted Cosmos?
Yes. Well, he's connected. We have that here as well. Haunted Cosmos. Have you heard that one, Alpaca?
I have. I've listened to it thoroughly.
Okay. Do you like it? What are you thinking? A tier? S tier?
Haunted Cosmos is let's settle the hard men issue.
Okay.
I'm going to trust your judgment on that. To me, it sounds a little bit like like a bearded man in the wilderness that sells black powder muskets. But it's up to you.
No, it's good. I'm going to nestle it right here next to Candace on the A tier. What are we doing with Haunted Cosmos?
Haunted Cosmos is D. I think it's very disrespectful to look deeply into the minutia of like scripture and apocrypha and get into the weeds with Bigfoot stuff. We're in a very important and tumultuous time in America and in the rest of the world. Do we really have the resources to dedicate to talking about mermaids? Come on, guys.
Okay, I hear you. Have you ever heard of Cross Politic? This is out of Moscow, Idaho. It's the Christchurch guys there, Waterboy, Chocolate Knox. This has been going for a long time. It was a bit more popular than back in the day, but it was an early kind of proto-Christian nationalist podcast because you see, like, the flag is bowing to the cross, right? The cross comes before the politic. So did some foundational work there, kind of radicalizing the reformed world to be more political. Have you ever heard this one, Alpaca? What do you think?
I have, and they're going to stay A tier because there's nothing that I think is more prescient and relevant to this time than squabbling over issues of reformed doctrine these guys they make a splash on Twitter. They're defending our important rights, on Twitter. I've seen a lot of tweets from them, specifically, the right to express frustration with ethno-nationalists. Ethno-nationalists are becoming a really big problem. They have lots of power in our political sphere, so it's important that they keep hammering away at that ethno-nationalist thing. And then Waterboy, he's doing the God's work, making sure that banks continue to have the rights to offer really high interest, 20 to 30% interest short-term loans to low agency people. And that's very important to what I look for in a podcast. So for that reason, I'd keep it at A.
Okay. Very good. We've got the other Moscow, Idaho podcast here, Blog and Mayblog. This is the long-standing Doug Wilson podcast. Where would you put that one, Alpaca?
That's S tier, obviously. And for two reasons. One, Milk and Honey was an incredible read. I really think the way that Doug will write the blog and then read the blog as a podcast, I think it's an incredible, valuable use of his time. And I've benefited greatly from being able to read it as well as watch Doug read it. So,
all right, very good. We'll put that right up in S tier next to Ben Shapiro in pretty high hallowed places there. But I mean, we only have two S tier, so I don't think we're diluting our ratings here too much. Next up is Oren McIntyre on The Blaze. What do you feel about Oren?
Is that that's the guy? He goes. His real name's like Baptist Bob, right?
Bob the Baptist, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I like him. I like the way he looks. I like his glasses. But he talks about Schmidt a lot, and I understand correctly, Schmidt is one of the philosophical precursors to Nazism, which is bad. So James Lindsay told me that to not listen to the podcast because it's woke right. So I'm gonna put him at D tier.
Okay, that's got to be D tier then. Well, I don't think James Lindsay likes the Contra Mundum guys either, so we might want to put them in D tier as well. What do you think?
That's the one with Andrew Isker and C.J. Engel, right?
Yes.
C.J. Engel owes my friend money, so put him at B.
B? All right.
Yeah.
We better get him some money back. What about Jay Burden? You ever seen any Jay Burden?
Yeah, I loved. He would have been A tier for sure. Then he went and showed his face on his podcast.
Wow.
And started doing the full-time content loop. Because he showed his face, I'm gonna have to put him in D tier. He's just not handsome enough for A tier. He cannot stack up to Ben Shapiro. There's something in his eyes that make me feel things that I'm uncomfortable feeling. So he's gonna be on D tier.
Yeah, he did dox himself there, didn't he? Which was kind of weird. I saw someone else did that recently. We'll have to see if we catch up to him. But first we have the Pete Quinones show. What about Pete Q, Uncle Pete?
I went to listen to that podcast, and like the titles were very titillating, right? He's, Anna Eisenmenger, Blockade, Reading, Part 1 through 20, or it was Thomas Evans 7, World War II History, Part 63, and I was intrigued and really wanted to listen to it. But when I clicked the podcast to listen to, it was just ads for Morgan and Morgan Law Firm. I didn't make it very far in. I'm gonna give him a B tier just on reputation alone.
Okay, we'll give him B tier. What up, Martyr Made? This guy kind of blew up recently when he went on Tucker and said that the Nazis were the good guys. I haven't followed him too much, but he recently blocked me on Twitter, so I didn't find that to be very nice. Have you ever listened to his podcast?
You know what? This is an injustice, Tom. We gotta put Pete on C tier. I'm sorry, I can't put Pete at the same level as Joe. He needs to be, even D tier. Pete Quinones goes to D tier. The amount of it's not worth it. Martyr Made. I love listening to Martyr Made when I have a random 17 hours in my day to listen to a podcast. It's definitely one that I keep coming back to during times where I've had like a major surgery, or I'm laid up with the flu, or maybe like a broken bone. That's when I really sit down and spend a lot of time with Martyr Made. I don't like some of the stuff he said on other people's podcasts. They do seem a little icky. But he has come out on Twitter and defended, things like people who run over ICE agents and migrants that commit crime. So for that reason, I would put him at S tier, but I think he's a solid B.
B tier, yeah. I am glad that he has that nuanced view where he likes the Nazis, but he also does not like ICE and doesn't like people getting killed. That's an interesting perspective we don't hear too much. All right, we got Jordan Peterson coming up. Jordan Peterson, the man, the myth, he's been around and he has changed quite a bit over the years. I would say he started off pretty poorly, but where would you put him at these days, Alpaca, the modern Jordan Peterson?
Well, back when he was in Canada, I would consider him D. He went very hard into the culture war stuff, but since immigrating to America, he joined the Daily Wire, which is, as you know, Ben Shapiro's outlet, and his relevance has only increased since the 2020s. I think he's more important now. For me, I was out there. I was going to church. I was wasting my life away, working really hard. I was really trying to become someone. And then I read this book about the 12 rules for life, about petting cats and cleaning my room. And I thought, you know what? The mundanity is what I'm really missing in this life. And then I read Maps of Meaning. Maps of Meaning is a fascinating work, about dreams and grandmothers and paintbrushes made out of pubic hair. And it really changed my life. I would consider Jordan Peterson to be an S tier, more relevant now, more important now than ever. Let's just never mention the benzodiazepine arc.
Okay, yeah. I think I agree, He's been called the public intellectual of our generation for good cause. Another public intellectual, though, Alex Jones. Where are we going to put the Alex Jones show?
He was the bad man. He was sneaking onto people's property, down in the Bohemian Grove. He was recording without consent. He was doing a lot of bad things, Tom. And it seems that he was trying to move up in the world, trying to repent, and then he did some more bad things. He got in trouble with the law. I'm not really going to opine on that, but now he's producing some more content. And he's really concerned that our friends in Israel are being maliciously blamed for things that are obviously the fault of the lizard people and the Chinese. So for that reason, I applaud him on his crusade now. I think he's a solid A.
A tier, yes. Alex Jones. A for Alex. Well, what about the American Reformer podcast? This is the podcast of those guys who created the Ridge Runner Project, and they have the American Reformer magazine. And have you paid attention to them at all, Alpaca? How do you think they stack up as a resource for your Reformed Christian today?
See, I don't know anything about the Reformed things that they're doing, but I do know that there is a delightful little homosexual man in one of the local news channels there, and I saw him giving an interview and doing a news piece where he was talking about the Ridge Runner guys and how they were trying to take over this little town and make life better for people in this small town by like stimulating their economy and bringing in like-minded people. And I thought to myself, that's pretty bad. Why would people want to do that? And their cultural commentary that they're offering, I'm not sure it aligns with my values. I think they're being a little presumptuous. For that reason, I'll stick them in a C.
C tier. Okay, C tier it is. What about the King's Halls? The King's Hall. This is the kind of flagship podcast of the Ogden people. Have you heard any of this? It's kind of a militaristic and history themed, but they touch on a lot of politics and modern topics as well. What about the King's Hall podcast, Alpaca?
Lots of Crusader flags, which not a good sign. Everyone knows Crusader flags are bad. And they had the most. I checked out their most recent episode where they were talking about Leaving a Legacy, which is a book by Johann Kunst. And what was revealed in the podcast was that none of the hosts had actually read the book. And in fact, one of the hosts, Dan Burkholder, is leaving the podcast. He got so fed up with reading books that he's now leaving the podcast to just be that Henry Kahn, and I guess this guy Suave, who puts out Spotify music. So I'm not sure what the point is, other than there's some sort of send off, some sort of message, like an inspirational thing. So I'd keep them at a solid C, I guess. Not my cup of tea. A lot of problematic imaging, that's happening, with their stuff. Some bad behavior on Twitter, but I guess it's cool if you're into meditating. You put your earplugs in and you listen to the podcast while you meditate just to kind of work yourself up for the day. That seems to be what they're trying to do there.
Okay. Well, the Lone Bulwark is kind of the most Christian nationalist of them all. This is Stephen Wolf's podcast. He wrote that book, The Case for Christian Nationalism, and then he made a pretty interesting tweet about Lone Bulwark, and now he's made it the title of his podcast, Alpaca.
Yeah, evangelicals are the lone bulwark against moral insanity in America. A little bit exclusivist. He could have been a little more open with his language. And A Case for Christian Nationalism is not great, not because of the content, but because it's like over 400 pages long. And who has time to really sit down and delve into all of that?
Not
Plus,
me.
He's constantly trying to tell me that people like the venerated dead, the people in our tradition, the reformers, he's always saying that they would transgress upon our modern liberal sentiments. So for that reason, I would put Stephen Wolf at a solid D. I'm tired of him lying about stuff Calvin said. See Eli McGowan's recent Twitter spat with Stephen if you need any background.
Okay, thank you for some important background there. What about the Old Glory Club? The Old Glory Club, how do you feel about them?
There's this guy, and his name is every time you see their podcast, mostly on YouTube, it's a stream, and it's this guy Red Hawk, right? And they just talk about stuff like. I don't really understand what the point is. They talk about stuff and then they take super chats, and they have these guys that super chat. It's like the same guys that super chat, and it's like a contest to see who could get in the super chat first. And they've gamified my podcast viewing experience. And I don't really know what's happening, but I know that it's provocative, and I don't like to be provoked. So I'd put them at a solid C. Maybe B plus, C minus, or C plus, B minus, around there.
All right, I'll put them in the B. No, I'll keep them in the C tier for now. What about Presbycast here? Presbycast, I think they've been around for a while, and they offer some pretty good stuff. What do you think about Presbycast?
Well, one of the more interesting things about Presbycast is that the host is actually over 300 years old. He's a vampire from Transylvania. And he has spent his entire existence complaining about things that Presbyterians believe. So it's really fascinating. And he's done some debates with Stephen Wolf and some other Presbyterians like D.G. Hart. It's a really valuable and insightful resource, always on the cutting edge of relevance, always willing to handle the really important issues of the day with incisive criticism, really well thought out, intelligent guy, presenter. So I'd give him S tier. He's absolutely S tier.
Oh wow, S tier. Okay, yeah, I didn't know about the 300 years old thing. That's amazing. All right. So let's keep going. We have, I'm not sure what that is. Let's go with Jesse Lee Peters. What do you think about Jesse Lee?
Well, I like that he's a person of color. And I like that he is really willing to delve into some of the more intricate sexual issues that men of color deal with on a day-to-day basis, and the temptations that they deal with and succumb to on a regular basis. And I also think he's one of the more intelligent commentators on this platform. He's not very memeable, so his popularity is limited. And I don't think he has growth potential within like the younger demographic that only really watch shorts. But I do think he's A tier, someone that you should refer back to as a valuable source of information.
That's great. Speaking of diversity, we have a woman next up. This is Allie Beth Stuckey. Relatable is the name of her show with Allie Beth Stuckey. What do we feel about Allie Beth Stuckey, Paco?
S tier. It's relatable. And the way that she's constantly offering her audience an apple pie, beautiful. Beautiful lady, beautiful soul. Everyone should listen to it all the time.
Very good. Okay, moving on. We have A Brief History of Power. What are we doing with this one?
Brief History of Power is like, they're Lutheran, which is pretty much all I know. They're Lutheran pastors. I would say they're A tier, but Stone Choir Podcast also claim to be Lutheran, and I don't know. It's a little bit of a association there. So I would keep them at B tier. If you're interested in propaganda dynamics or Lutheran polity or ecclesiastical issues, it's a decent resource. But because they're Lutheran, be careful.
Gotcha. What about Backwoods Belief? These are some Baptist boys. Ben Delwary on Twitter is one of them, and then they've been around for a little while, speaking on kind of the Christian nationalist side of things. Have you ever listened to the Backwoods Belief, Alpaca?
I did, and one of the guys talks funny. He's got a little bit of a drawl to him. Sounds like a mountain man, which makes sense. But then they called their podcast Backwoods Belief, and I believe one of the other presenters is from Pittsburgh.
Okay,
I've been to Pittsburgh. It's not really backwoods. So I like the funny way they speak.
Okay,
but I just think it's a little. They had this. They're a little sadistic. They had this group chat. And they were talking to these guys in the group chat, trying to provide some mentorship, some life coach. And they told them, if you don't talk to girls, we're going to kick you out of the group chat.
Whoa.
And to me, that, I look at that and it's not very loving, right?
Yeah.
You're not training these guys to opine after women, to seek, to listen to female voices, to be ready when their princess deletes her OnlyFans and comes to know Christ. You're really just you're coaching these guys to be too aggressive, and for that reason, I think it's C tier.
Okay, yeah, it would make sense that the Backwood guys are a little too aggressive with the ladies. I get that. What about the Old Paths? This is kind of similar. These are maybe some backwoods type guys, but I think a lot of them are Presbyterians, and they talk about some pretty extreme stuff on this here podcast for Christians anyway. Have you ever checked out the Old Paths podcast?
The Old Paths podcast is my biggest problem with it is Cody is not uploading it to Spotify on any sort of recurring frequency. It's very difficult to figure out where the Old Paths podcast is getting posted. So I haven't had a chance to listen in a long time. I understand that they're working on some sort of magazine about mantles and fireplaces. Michael Spangler, really, really upstanding guy. No one has anything negative to say about him. He's a pastor and a school teacher in somewhere in down south. But Cody, Cody is way too far out there. He's always talking about, enemies and Schmittian distinctions, and I think he doesn't like Captive Dreamer for some reason. So I'm not really, I'm not comfortable putting them at B. I'd leave them at D.
At D?
No one should listen. Yeah, D. No one should listen to it. It's far too on the right, far too friend and enemy, and the Jews are bad. Like none of that. We're not interested. Michael Spangler is a doll. Like, nothing wrong with Michael Spangler. Cody's just a little too far out there, man.
Okay. I didn't realize there was some anti-Semitism going on in the old paths. Okay, now we have Joel Webbin. Joel Webbin, this guy just does not go away. His platform has changed names. It's now the New Christian Right. But he just seems to be always in the news, always pissing people off, actually. He gets a lot of people riled up. So what about Joel Webbin and the New Christian Right?
Well, what you don't realize is that Joel Webbin actually got his start on another podcast called The Right Response Ministries, which was very highly promoted by the Right Wing Watch people. And I trust the Right Wing Watch people as a source of information for who I should listen to. Right? When they're out there saying, "This is what Joel is saying. We agree. Look at this. Look at this." I was like, "Man, this Joel guy." So the new X-Right or New Christian Right, NXR. It's created by Wesley, and they brought Joel on as a spin-off, I guess, or some sort of sequel to Right Response Ministries. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go. But one thing I know about Wesley Todd is that he's out there. He's one of those guys that's little too on the edge. And Joel, I think Joel will bring a nice centering voice to that podcast. I think he's able to guide that ship a little bit more in the middle road. They say the narrow road has a ditch on both sides. Wesley's the ditch on the right, and the other co-host is the ditch on the left. And I think Joel's going to keep them on the road. So I'm going to give them C tier.
Okay, that's great. Triggernometry. They've been around for a while now, and they've got a lot of really big interviews. They've had a lot of influence on the culture, even, I would think. I believe they're out of the UK, but pretty important podcast here, Triggernometry. What do you feel about them? Should we keep them up here A tier? What tier would we put Triggernometry?
I don't think they get enough play. Some people accuse them of being AstroTurf, but I think these guys deserve a billion plays on Apple and Spotify. So S tier, they speak to me in a way that no one else can. The way their voices and their timbre of their voices is very effeminate. It's soothing. The way they, reduce all distinctions between people to be some sort of like factor of random chance, and that everyone is equal in every conceivable way, and that we have to return to classical liberalism and stamp out anything that would make people feel icky and uncomfortable. I love those guys.
S tier it is. Okay, very nice. Next we have James White and his Alpha and Omega ministry here, The Dividing Line. What do we feel about James White, the stalwart debater of the Reformed world?
It's brave, really brave for a Baptist podcast host to do so much work promoting homosexual and LGBTQ lines of clothing. He seems to be really connected with that community, a little bit of a fashionista, even in his old age. He travels around the country in his RV looking for new homosexual brands that he can promote on his show. But he doesn't do it in that pushy way where it's like, look at me in my LGBTQ shirt, it's got a rainbow on it, or like, a picture of two dudes buggering. He does it in a very subtle way where it's there in the background. The rainbow's in the background and the lights. He's got the sweater on, with a cat and a rainbow. It's very brave, I think, within the Christian podcast community. That said, his content, especially his apologetical content, it's a little exclusive. Are we really interested in saying that Christ is better than Catholics, or Christians, Protestants are better than Catholics, or Christians are better than Muslims?
He is pretty rough on that. I've heard him.
Yeah. So for that reason, I'd put him at B.
Okay, B tier. Yeah, some subtle messaging there from James White. What about Cultish? Cultish, this podcast talks about cults.
B tier. I do think they went a little hard after Nexium, you know. Mm-hmm. But my time in Nexium was not. I didn't get branded, so you know, chill.
Maybe a little too puritanical with the Colts there. What about Mark Levin? As a finance guy, you might know a little bit about Mark Levin and his show here. It's a pretty popular podcast. What do you think?
Mark Levin is a staple of the podcast community. He's a cornerstone. He's been doing it since Rush Limbaugh was in the game, and you know, for that, his entire long career, he's done one thing and one thing only, and it's to scream the word Constitution into the mic. The Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution. It's important. People forget.
We forget about it.
They forget that the Constitution exists. And so someone needs to be there screaming about the Constitution. And recently, you know, he's added the word Israel. Constitution, Israel, Constitution, Israel. And it's also important to remind us that there is a country in the Levant called Israel that needs to be connected to our Constitution somehow. So S tier for sure.
S tier for Mark Levin. Very good. What about Steve Deese here, the Steve Deese Show?
Well, I met Steve Deese in 2024. You know, it seemed like a really, really solid guy. Little bit economically, you know, he's a free market guy. We much prefer a podcast that's open to the idea of giving Somalians and foreigners ample opportunities to commit billions and billions of dollars of fraud. Steve's a little closed-minded on those issues.
Okay.
But he makes up for it by being a consummate friend of Israel and the Netanyahu regime. And he does have a really closed heart to the right-wing guys that are out there spewing their hatred on Twitter. So I'd place Steve Deese in a solid B.
Okay, let's give him a B tier. Michael Knowles on the Daily Wire podcast. Where are we putting Michael Knowles?
Well, what's interesting about Michael Knowles is that he's Catholic and he's not gay, which was a surprise to me. Mm-hmm. I thought from the bow ties, you know, would be an indicator.
And that little dance he does on his intro around his office, you know?
Yeah, and he's got a real dainty way of speaking. And there's this woman called No Soup for Knowles, apparently has no relation to Michael Knowles. She's just kind of out there using his name to like promo her own Twitter or something. Very odd behavior from Michael Knowles. But in terms of the Daily Wire crew, I would put, you know, Ben Shapiro, Andrew Klavan, you know, those are the guys. Michael Knowles is like a little bit farther down on the list. So I'd put him at a B tier for sure.
Okay, B tier. Would you say the same for his co-worker here, Matt Walsh, in the B tier here? How do we feel about Matt Walsh?
Well, what's interesting about Matt Walsh is that Matt Walsh is a fiction. He's this is the what people don't understand is that Joel Webbin actually, while he was doing Right Response Ministries, he created this character named Matt Walsh and sold it to the Daily Wire to be like their vanguard rightist position. You know, he pretends to be this Catholic dad, you know, from the mean streets of Baltimore. And, you know, he does all these movies where he's been hinting at the big reveal, right? He does these movies where he dresses up as liberals and all these characters. And what he's signaling to his crowd is that I'm not who I say I am. I dress up and I play a character. And I think the reveal is coming soon that Matt Walsh is Joel Webbin. But, you know, for now, he's going really hard against foreigners. He's going really hard against immigration. I would put him at a C tier. Definitely the worst out of the Daily Wire crew.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll put him in C right next to Joel Webbin, his true identity. I put this here as kind of like a honorable mention, but we could also rank it based on how it is today without Charlie Kirk. But the Charlie Kirk show, Alpaca, where would we put that?
You know, D tier. D tier.
D tier. Okay. All right. What about A.D. Robles? You ever listen to any A.D. Robles?
I do. He's a Mets fan, and he talks about baseball.
Yep.
And he has these fishing rods in the background,
Fishing.
Not a fan. Not a fan. There's more important things in this world than talking about baseball, AD, or talking about fishing.
Yeah.
If Adam wants to go on his podcast and like mislead me with titles of a podcast that will never come, he's going to tell me, oh, we're going to talk about the dividing line and Joel Webben and Stephen Wolf, and then he talks about baseball for 26 minutes. You're out of here. C tier.
C tier. C tier it is. All right, we've only got 2 more to go. One is a pretty big one here. It's the Nick Fuentes America First. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in D tier. I'm guessing that's where you're going to place it. Is that right, Alpaca?
Nick Fuentes, yeah, there's not much that I like about him. He's not charismatic. He's very monotonous. His dulcet tones put me to sleep. He does this section of his show where he's like reading super chats, and they're never funny. Someone had this joke about Cookie Monster. It was really distasteful, and Nick was very awkward about it. There's rumors that he's friends with this Ali Akbar character from back in the day. Ali Akbar would have been S tier, but
Okay.
Nick is. In terms of modern political commentary, I don't think he's very connected. He's not very well versed on foreign policy or domestic policy. He's not very well versed on history. Would never recommend anyone watching anything that he's a part of. Evil man, incel, Nazi,
Yes.
whatever.
Yes, we'll keep him in the D tier. And I'm guessing that's the same for our last one here, the Stone Choir podcast. Are we going to put them in the D tier as well?
Well, the most commendable thing about the Stone Choir podcast is that it's over, right? There is no more Stone Choir podcast. There's just Woe, and there's just Corey, and there's just a back catalog of things that should absolutely be banned from the internet. And if you guys have anybody in your church that's listening to the Stone Choir podcast, you need to make sure that you reach out to them and tell them how concerned you are about what they're consuming online. Make sure that you mention the words, "I'm concerned for your soul." They are Lutheran, which, everyone knows
First
is-
problem.
Yeah, and they have, Corey Mahler's a lawyer, which is like not great.
Yep.
So completely, unsubstantiated claims and all of their stuff. There's definitely there's no value in Stone Choir at all. No one should ever listen to it, ever refer to it. Certainly not go back and do it on 2x 3 or 4 times just to make sure that you fully absorb the information. There's nothing there. Keep it a D tier. It's an F. Stay away from me. Whoa. Goodbye.